You are breaking every single bylaw of this community, and I won't stand for it." Her voice, a shrill, cutting sound, sliced through the morning calm. I couldn't believe it. My new jet ski, sitting innocently on a trailer at the edge of my property, had just provoked a full-blown Karen meltdown. A police car, its siren a silent, stark punctuation mark, sat behind her Mercedes SUV. "Do you have any idea who I am?" she demanded, turning her glare from me to the approaching deputy. I just sighed, the familiar weariness settling deep in my bones. This was going to be a long day. Officer Ramirez, his face a well-worn map of rural indifference, finally reached us. He'd seen it all before. "Ma'am, what seems to be the problem?" he asked, his voice a low, calming rumble that seemed to physically deflate some of the tension. "Karene'll just call her Karen, because that's what she was." Took a deep, theatrical breath. "This man," she began, her tone laced with disdain, "has a motorized watercraft on his property. It's an eyesore, a noise violation, and a flagrant disregard for our HOA regulations. The bylaws clearly state that." She trailed off, pulling out a laminated copy of a document. I knew that document well. I'd read it cover to cover before I even made an offer on this place. It was her Bible, her sword, her one true purpose in life. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, trying my best not to smirk. The look on her face was pure triumph, an almost orgasmic satisfaction at having finally cornered me. The new homeowner who dared to park a jet ski on his own land. "Bylaw 7.3.2, she declared, jabbing a polished finger at the page. "No motorized watercraft visible from the lakefront. He is in violation." She looked at the deputy with an air of "See, my work here is done." But something flickered in Officer Ramirez's eyes. He didn't look at the paper. He looked at me. "Hey, aren't you the new fella on the old Miller place?" he asked, a hint of something recognition. Maybe, in his voice. My heart gave a little jolt. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, a slow smile finally spreading across my face. "I'm the one who bought it from the Miller family estate." I noticed Karen's victorious sneer waver just a bit. "Good. And you have a deed for this property?" the deputy continued, his tone shifting. "A specific deed?" I reached into my pocket, pulling out a folded, crinkled document. It wasn't a standard property deed. This was an old, heavy-papered thing, with elegant cursive writing and a faint, musty smell. I handed it to him. Karen's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" "It's irrelevant. The HOA bylaws," she began, but Officer Ramirez held up a hand. A silent command that stopped her dead in her tracks. He unfolded the paper, his gaze scanning the contents. He took his time. The silence was thick, broken only by the gentle lapping of water against the dock pilings. I could feel the eyes of the neighbors on us. They'd been Karen's unwitting audience for years. And now, finally, there was a different show in town. "Ma'am," the deputy said, his voice flat, emotionless, "this isn't an ordinary deed." He looked up, his gaze locking with hers. Her bravado was already dissolving, replaced by a kind of panicked, desperate confusion. "This deed," he continued, holding up the document for her to see, "was signed by the original developer of this whole community, Mr. Miller himself, and it specifies, in great detail, that the owner of this parcel of land has perpetual, inalienable rights to the entire lakefront parcel. It's part of the original trust, and it states, very clearly right here," he pointed, his finger tracing a line of elegant script, "including the right to construct, maintain, and use any and all non-commercial recreational watercraft, motorized or otherwise, on said parcel. This deed, mum, predates your HOA." The silence that followed was deafening. Karen's jaw hung open. She was utterly speechless. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to witness. Her face, so often a mask of imperious confidence, was now a pale, trembling canvas of shock. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving a pasty white. She looked at me, then at the deputy, then at her useless HOA rulebook, as if the reality of the situation was too much to bear. But that's impossible," she sputtered, her voice no longer a sharp blade but a dull, rusty saw. "The HOA has authority over everything. The covenants," the deputy replied, his voice a hammer striking an anvil, "are subject to the terms of the original property deeds. And this one's from 1952. The Miller family retained specific, explicit rights for their land when they sold off the rest of the lots. They wanted to make sure they could always do what they wanted with their own lakefront property. That's what this document says. This man's property isn't just a lot. It's the original Miller homestead and the surrounding waterfront. Your bylaws don't apply to him. The deputy's words weren't a revelation to me, but to Karen. They were a death knell. She recoiled, as if physically struck. Her perfectly coiffed hair seemed to droop. Her crisp white clothes suddenly looked like a crumpled mess. She began to breathe in short, sharp gasps. This wasn't just about a jet ski. This was about the foundation of her entire identity. The little kingdom she had built on a mountain of petty rules and regulations. It was all a mirage, and the desert wind was finally blowing it away. I saw her shoulders slump, her smug, condescending posture, the one she used to lord over everyone, just dissolved. She looked small, pathetic. The neighbors, who had been whispering in hushed tones, now began to murmur with a sort of collective, quiet satisfaction. A few of them even smiled at me, a silent gesture of gratitude. One older man, Mr. Henderson, gave me a subtle thumbs up from his porch. I had no idea that my simple act of buying a jet ski would turn me into some sort of folk hero. But I wasn't complaining. This was a win for everyone who had ever been told their trash cans were a centimeter too far from the curb, or their mailbox was the wrong shade of beige. This was a moment of pure justice. "Now, ma'am," the deputy said, his tone turning official, "you filed a false report. That's a waste of law enforcement resources, and you've harassed a resident for no valid reason. I'm going to have to issue you a citation." He pulled out his ticket book. Karen's eyes widened, and a small, whimpering sound escaped her lips. A citation for what?" She stammered. "Public nuisance, harassment, and filing a false report," he said, his pen scratching against the paper. The sound was a symphony to my ears. He wrote with deliberate, slow strokes, as if savoring every letter. The wind seemed to carry the faint sound of his pen across the lake. The whole world held its breath. When he tore the ticket from the book and handed it to her, her hand shook so badly she could barely hold it. She looked at the ticket, then at me, then back at the ticket, as if she couldn't comprehend the words on the page. Her voice was a whisper. This is an outrage." "No, ma'am," the deputy replied, his tone firm and final. "An outrage was you calling 911 because your neighbor was enjoying his own property. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm needed elsewhere. Have a good day." He tipped his hat to me and walked back to his car, leaving us stunned, speechless Karen standing there with a ticket in her trembling hand. I just smiled at her, a sincere, genuine smile. There was nothing more to say, nothing more to do. I walked over to the jet ski, patted the seat, and felt a profound sense of peace. Justice, it turns out, isn't always a grand, sweeping act. Sometimes it's just a guy with an old deed and a deputy who knows his land history. It's in the quiet, delicious defeat of a bully. It was the moment she realized her power was a lie, and the simple truth of the matter was right there in front of her.